Bullseye with Jesse Thorn is a production of MaximumFun.org and is distributed by NPR.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. Next up on the show, William Jackson Harper, being interviewed by our friend Linda Holmes, who hosts NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. Harper is an actor, and the odds are if you know his name, you're a fan of The Good Place. Harper played Chidi, the sweet philosophy professor who could never make up his mind.
It'd be easier to sort out the issue of dry erase versus paper if I could write down the pros and cons for each. But, of course, I would have to use one of them to write down the pros and cons for them, which is problematic.
The role jump-started his career, got him some award nominations, including an Emmy nod. Then, a couple of years ago, he got a part in the critically acclaimed horror movie Midsommar. He played Josh in that. These days, he's got even more on his plate. He's set to appear in the TV show The Underground Railroad, directed by Barry Jenkins, who made Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk. And he's also got a leading part in a rom-com. We Broke Up is about a couple who broke up. William plays Doug, who up until now has been dating Lori, played by Aya Cash. Here's the hitch, though. The two of them split up just days before Lori's sister's big destination wedding. So, does Lori show up alone and take the spotlight away from her sister, or do they show up and pretend they're still a couple? I mean, it's just one more weekend, right? What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, here's a clip from the movie. Lori pulls Doug away from breakfast to confront him about making future vacation plans with her family, even though, as the title suggests, they broke up.
What are you doing over there?
Well, I thought that was the plan. Pretend we're still together?
You are literally making vacation plans with my grandparents.
I'm just trying to put on a good show.
This is my life. These are my people. You don't have to deal with them after this weekend. I do.
You're right. I'm sorry. Okay? Maybe we should take a little space.
Yeah, maybe.
Avoid other people. Keep a low profile.
Yeah, I think that would really help.
William Jackson Harper, welcome to Bullseye.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So that's a clip from We Broke Up, which is, I watched it with the eye of a person who has seen a lot of romantic comedy. It is a romantic comedy, but it's been referred to as subversive. I think that's fair. What did you like about this project when you first saw it?
Well, I just, I know what it is to be in a long-term relationship and to have it sort of fall apart on you a little bit. And, it doesn't mean that the love is gone. It doesn't mean that, it's that you now hate that person and you just want them out of your lives forever. It's just like, it's you just grow in different ways and change. And sometimes those things aren't compatible. And so there's something in this script that just felt very real, and it felt more like the breakups that I had seen and sort of experienced personally. And so, I was just really into seeing what that would feel like to play,
Yeah. I feel like I start all my conversations right now with similar themes, which are sort of, this was pandemic filmed, right?
It was just before pandemic, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in February.
Where did you film this? Because it takes place mostly at a kind of an old summer camp. Where was it filmed?
Yeah, we shot it in Malibu, actually, most of it. And at this really it's a very fancy resort, but they also have these old sets out there from, other movies that have shot out there. And actually a lot of our set was from Wet Hot American Summer, that movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so, they have a bunch of random little pieces, on the grounds. And so we shot there.
Oh, wow. I would not have guessed. It's very convincing as an old summer camp. What has been, in terms of after the kind of the pandemic started, how much work has been possible for you? How much have you been working?
Actually, I've been doing a fair amount of work. Nothing in person. I've been doing a lot of voiceover stuff, cartoon stuff, and then some, home theater sort of stuff. Like I've been, doing like a lot of short
Yeah.
Zoom plays and things like that. And so I've actually been able to stay pretty busy. It pales in comparison to the real thing, obviously, but it's a way to try to stay sharp when you can,
Yeah. What else have you done with yourself? Have you been doing things that are new for you? Are you like a sourdough bread guy or a watch Columbo guy?
I've been trying to watch stuff on the Criterion Collection, and I've been getting stumped by some of the things that I've been trying to watch. I don't want to like badmouth the things that I feel like I should like, but I am just like completely flummoxed by. But like I've been watching a lot of TV. Finally watched all of The Sopranos. I had never seen. I think I'd seen maybe 2 episodes until pandemic started, and then my girlfriend and I finished the whole thing.
That's impressive.
It's a great show. It's like, it's one of those things where you miss a cultural moment and you're like, oh, now I get it. It's like
Yeah.
that's sort of what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Oh, Call My Agent, this French show that I
People keep
just
telling me
love.
that.
It's so great. It's so great. And it's really funny and heartfelt. And it's not a daunting amount of episodes to watch. It's
Right.
something that, you can get through. But then like the other thing is actually I've been trying to learn piano, just to have another skill. And I'm
Mhm.
still trash at it. I still sound like a fourth grader, but
It's not bad. A lot of fourth graders are pretty good at piano.
well, I sound like a fourth grader who started last week, like it's just like really awful, but it's a lot of fun. It's like a new skill, and it's like I've actually started to retain certain things, and it's like I can read music now, which is something I never really had. And so it's, when I think about the time that we've had just sort of down and waiting, I always think like, oh, what did I do with it? And I'm like, oh, well, I did acquire at least one more skill.
Yeah. I mean, I think between piano and finishing The Sopranos, that's solid. That's a solid showing productivity wise compared to a lot of people, I think, during pandemic time.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's not a contest. This is it's like it's what it is. If you did nothing but chill out, that is totally valid.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. Our guest is actor William Jackson Harper.
A lot of people, I think, know you best for playing Chidi Anagonye on The Good Place, which you did for it's 4 seasons, right?
Yeah, 4 seasons.
I want to ask you, Chidi is a studies philosophy and ethics and things like that.
Hmm.
The show had a lot of writing and consulting and conversation about philosophy and ethics. How did it affect you being involved in a project for that long that was so kind of deeply involved in conversations about those kinds of things?
Uh, I didn't realize how much it affected me until after it was done. I think that, I think beyond the, ideas around philosophy and ethics that we discuss on the show, there is just a very, the cast, the crew, make sure, like everyone's a good person, and this, like, there is like this general sweetness on set at all times. Everyone's treated with respect. There is a very concerted effort to do the right thing, and just the people that I'm around. And I think when I'm, around the likes of like Mike Schur and Ted Danson and Kristen Bell, these people that I've like seen for years be great in this industry and be great at their job, I guess I just assumed that they would be. I just assumed that they would be like, there would be something about them like, okay, well, they're people that are like really, they're successful, and successful people can't be kind and care about other folks that much, right? I mean, like I don't know, it's not fair, it's not real, it's something I totally concocted in my own head. But but just being around them and seeing how good they are, how much they think about what they owe to other people all the time, and what is their duty given their status and where they are in their lives. It's hard not to have that enter your everyday thinking. And so, I've had like a couple of moments, some during the run of the show and some after, where it's just like, I was like, I found myself thinking, wow, I can't morally justify this. I mean, even though there's a payoff, and I feel that maybe like a couple of years ago I'd have been like, well, I just gotta hold my nose and do this thing. I felt like, well, I got to be able to live with myself after this is all done. And I've been working around these people and working on this show that talks about morality and ethics and principles. And I would feel really terrible if I came away from that show having played the mouthpiece for all those ideas and not retained any of it. And so, it's now is when I'm like starting to really notice that it's really infused itself into my thinking.
Yeah, you said you sort of concocted this in your head, this idea that people had to be lousy human beings if they were really successful. And I wonder, is it that you concocted that in your head, or is it that, because I always feel like where I get that from when I kind of assume that about people is both the repeated disappointment of learning unpleasant things about people whose work I admire, and then seeing the idea that the natural artistic temperament is abusive or unpleasant, used as an excuse for people who are abusive or unpleasant. So it's almost a surprise when you're reminded, oh, there's nothing about being really super creative that requires you to be horrible to other people. It's just a
No.
thing that has been used as like a pass for people who are horrible.
Yeah, I mean, the older I get, the more I think like there's really no excuse to be a lousy person to other people. It's like you just don't have to do it. You have a choice. And I mean, I understand that there are moments where people just sort of lose control. I totally get that. But, I get angry a lot, and I feel that like when I'm in those moments where I feel like I'm about to be really terrible, I pause, because it's just like I have to do, is this the person that I want to be?
Yeah.
And is the person that I'm about to level this, sort of vitriol at, do they really deserve the level of anger that I'm about to give them? Like,
Yeah.
probably not. And so I just need to, how much of that is just about other stuff and it's about me being frustrated. And I just don't feel like I shouldn't make that other people's problem. And so, yeah, that's the thing about like working with, these TV greats, these people that I admire so much, these, sort of artistic giants in our field. Like when I'm working with them and they're super sweet and super generous and kind and nerdy about what we're trying to make and excited, it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't have to be the norm. And I'm willing to bet that that's not the norm. But, I guess like you, I've seen the other part too. I've seen the other thing happen. And so it's, I'd like to kind of move forward with a more open heart, and just be like, you know what, people are going to be decent to you if you really give them a shot.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I'm still learning that, but I'm working towards it.
Yeah. I didn't know until I started reading up on your work that you had done theater with actually two women that I've interviewed for this very show. You worked with Kristen Milioti in
Yeah.
After the Blast. I talked to her around Palm Springs, which was a really fun conversation. And Carrie Coon, who you worked with in Placebo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is, how has this sort of the interruption, those are both people that I talked to extensively about kind of the significance and importance of theater in the theater community. How has kind of the interruption of live theater hit you personally?
Well, It's been a few years since I've done a play.
Yeah.
That used to be my main thing was, going from play to play to play. Um, so I think for me at this point, it's really sort of like I'm looking at my friends who that's how they make their living is going from play to play to play. And I'm like, wow, this is a year of you not getting to do your job. And, it's I don't know. I guess I've concern is like the biggest thing,
Hmm.
and frustration that we kind of couldn't get it together enough to kind of come out of this faster and all that stuff. But it's yeah, it's a lot of concern on my end. But I also just miss going to the theater a lot. It's just like this thing where you're
Hmm.
in a room and we're all together experiencing these people go through something in real time, and it's like what you see is what you get, and there's something about that is it's really thrilling to me more so than almost anything else, which is why I did it for so long. And so
Hmm.
um I really hope that theater can come back sooner rather than later. I know people have said things like, "Oh, theater's dead," blah 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 blah, and I don't believe that, obviously, but I do wonder if this does sort of like take a swipe at theater when it's on the ropes, and
Yeah.
that I'm a little worried about. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's the thing that I just feel concerned for my friends who are doing a lot of plays.
We'll finish up with William Jackson Harper after the break. Now that he's getting more work as an actor, he's able to turn down some roles. Harper will tell us why it's such a big relief to be able to say no once in a while. It's Bullseye from MaximumFun.org and NPR. This message comes from NPR sponsor Odoo. Do you run a business or manage a team? Then it's time to switch to Odoo. Odoo is a suite of business applications designed to streamline, automate, and simplify any company. Odoo has apps for everything: CRM, inventory, manufacturing, sales, accounting, you name it. Odoo's got you covered. So, stop wasting time and start getting stuff done with Odoo. For a free trial, go to odoo.com/bullseye.
A few years ago, a website popped up in Stockton, California, and conspiracy theories started ramping way up.
And it's being funded by conservative movement underneath the table.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, people really believe this.
What happens when the local news outlet isn't fact-checking conspiracy theories, maybe encouraging them? Listen now from NPR's Invisibilia podcast.
Welcome back to Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. If you're just joining us, we are talking with William Jackson Harper. You've seen him in the acclaimed sitcom The Good Place, where he played Chidi. He's also been in movies like Midsummer and in TV shows like High Maintenance. Right now, you can see him in We Broke Up, a romantic comedy in which he stars alongside Aya Cash. It's out now in select theaters and on demand. Conducting the interview is William Jackson Harper and Good Place superfan Linda Holmes.
What kinds of things do you find are kind of challenging or kind of scary to think about doing right now?
Uh, well, like really larger than life characters on camera is tough. Just because it doesn't take a whole lot to be big on camera, but it's also really easy to disappear on camera. There's a couple of actors that I watch that, and I mean, like, actually, Kristen Bell is one of them who just knows how to make things feel full and up, but also subtle. And I think that, like, one of the things that I've run into sometimes is like when I try to go big with something, it's too much, and I have to find a way to calibrate that. On stage, it's a little bit easier just because it's like you got to fill a house and you just go for it, and it's usually fun. But
Right,
there's a
right, right,
there's a
right.
subtle calibration on camera that's a lot tougher. But like that's something that really frightens me. Or someone with like a serious, like a very distinct physical trait. Like that's something that I'm like, how do I keep that consistent? How do I like use it? How do I, it's just like little things like that. Just like it's really more like sort of like the window dressing. It's like when it's the truth of the character is going to be the truth of the character. But when you have something that you need to do in order for that character to actually be able to be fully rendered as what the writer wanted, like that sort of thing frightens me because I've never had to do anything that's like physically or vocally way out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I will say, one thing that we haven't talked about yet is Midsummer, and
Mhm.
that is probably the biggest thing that you have done that I have not seen because I have refused to see it because I am too scared. It's the same thing with Toni Collette in Hereditary. I know it's very good, have not seen it, too scared, can't do it.
Ah.
Were you a kind of a horror creepo movie guy before you were in Midsummer?
Yeah. I mean, like I don't watch horror movies like once a week or anything like that, but I do love a type of horror film. Like I like a cult film. I like a supernatural film. Like the slasher thing is not really my jam.
Right.
Just because it's like I for me, I just feel like, okay, so we're waiting through all the people that are gonna die until there's one person left, and it's
Right.
like, so it's like, you kind of know where you're headed, and I get bored. But then like the supernatural stuff that terrifies me, because you can't fight it. You can't have a fist fight with a ghost. You just gotta deal with it.
So what kind do you like?
Well, I love The Exorcist. Rosemary's
Mhm.
Baby, I think,
Yeah.
is fantastic. Let's see, I liked The Ring a lot. That came out when I was, I don't know, I can't remember when it came out, but I was younger.
Movie's so scary. Too
That I
scary.
loved it. Um, yeah, I loved it. That was 100% my jam. I was so
It's
excited.
so upset. It's such an upsetting movie. Oh, it's so upsetting though. I thought about it. I saw that one and then after it, I just kept thinking about it and I kept thinking about that girl and it was so
Yeah.
just disturbing. It was very
Well, yeah, it's
disturbing.
unsettling. It's like the thing where it's like, something's frightening, but you're not 100% sure why it's frightening. And then
Mhm.
it gets legit real scary. It's like, I love when that happens. And so, yeah, I love that sort of thing. I really like the Conjuring movies quite a bit. I think that those are fun. So yeah, stuff like that is my, that is, I scare the mess out of myself watching those and I love it.
What is coming up next? You're in Underground Railroad, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. You're talking earlier about stuff that kind of scares me. Like that was a project I
Sure.
was like really scared of. Just because I mean, the subject matter is like intensely triggering for me, and it's just the kind of stuff that makes me angry, and it's hard
Yeah.
to go to some of those places. But also, just working with Barry Jenkins, like that's intimidating because I just have all the respect in the world for him, and I think he's amazing. And also, like, this, like the cast was, when I heard who else was in it, I was just like, oh man, everyone's real good. Everyone's real good. Oh Lord, am I ready? Can I handle this? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited for people to experience this piece and to have some conversations and to have some questions for themselves and for people that they're watching with and for their community afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really harrowing and special, and hopefully it makes people mad. And because it definitely did that for me.
Yeah. I want to ask you without sort of requiring you to kind of rehash the entire thing. I did want to ask you a little bit about last fall, a story that you told about a screening of Malcolm X that you were scheduled to host
Mhm.
for military, right? A military
Yeah,
screening of Malcolm X.
yeah.
Can you sort of sketch out like I said, without sort of requiring you to rehash the whole thing, can you kind of sketch out what that story was?
Yeah, so basically, I work with this charity called Arts in the Armed Forces, which is just, it's a charity that introduces arts programming to the various military academies. And we were doing this movie night, and they asked me for three movies that I would be interested in watching and having a little talk back with some of the cadets and stuff. And I think the three movies I listed were Citizen Kane, American Honey, and Malcolm X. and Malcolm X was one that was picked, and I was like, okay, great. And then I get an email from my agent saying like, a couple of the academies might pull out just because of this executive order. And I forget the actual name of it, but it's like combating race and sexist stereotyping, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but they might pull out just in case they run afoul of that executive order. And I was like, oh, that's okay. That's really strange. And in the end, actually, 3 of the 4 academies that were going to participate wound up participating. Initially 2 academies dropped out, and then 1 came back in. And so 3 of the 4 academies did participate, and we had a great discussion, and we just, that was basically it. But I just felt like, this is odd, because I felt like I had to say something, just because if this executive order could be interpreted in that way, where a movie like Malcolm X couldn't be shown to people, I was like, we should rethink that. We should think about that. And so, yeah, that's sort of led to me, posting my little like rant on Twitter, just because I was like, I just need to say something about it, just because it feels weird to not mark this. I don't know. I just felt like we needed to know that's the sort of chilling effect that this executive order can have. And also, I mean, like, I should say that, like, the executive order does not say cadets cannot watch Malcolm X. So it's like, that's not in there, it's just the interpretation of certain people could sort of start to push certain things out of, it could lead to people censoring certain things that maybe don't need to be censored. And I just was like, we should keep an eye on that,
Yeah. Do you have any hesitation when you sort of get involved in something like that is likely to kind of draw the attention of people who are very invested in kind of political back and forth, even though that's not what you're trying to do? Are you conflicted about it, or is it just obvious that has to be done when you sort of decide to speak publicly about something like that?
I mean, of course I'm conflicted about it, just because, I feel like I'm not the most qualified person to be talking about things all the time. I think that with this particular case, it was I just told the story exactly as it happened. Like, I wasn't trying to put too much of a spin on anything, and I wasn't saying like, this is what they said and nobody came, like, nothing sensational. It was like I said, 3 of the 4 academies actually participated. And so it's like, I don't like wading too much into political waters all the time, just because I find myself out of my depth. I'm not a political thinker. I'm just a citizen who has opinions. And sometimes, because of my little piece of a platform, it can come off as if I'm like some kind of authority on something. And it's just me voicing my opinion on something. And so I try to be careful about that. Just because it's, like, I don't want to get too far out of my depth. I also really have zero interest in engaging in political debate on Twitter and Instagram. You're never gonna, nuance is completely lost. And it's really more about, how do you own someone, hurt someone's feelings, and in the argument, and get retweeted with someone saying, ooh, totally taken down, like, that's what the arguments are. Nothing is ever resolved. People just sort of dig in more. And so I have zero interest in engaging in those debates. And so when I do wade out and say something, it's like, it's kind of important to me, or it's legit personal. And it's more about my experience, less about what I think other people should believe. And so it's like, take what you want from it. And this is my experience. This is how I feel.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, we talked a little bit about kind of the, your thinking around making sure that the decisions that you're making are decisions that you can live with and feel good about. Has that changed anything about the kinds of roles that you say yes or no to? Are there things that you say no to because it's just not where you want to be in terms of the kind of work that you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I've gotten older, and a little bit more stable, financially, I've been able, that's a luxury to be able to just say yes or no. Like that's a privilege.
For
And
sure.
it's like there are people out there that are really struggling, and they're making principled decisions before they have like real stability yet. And that's the thing to admire. Me, I'm like, I would do anything that anyone would ask for a long time, just because I was like, I need to work. I got to pay the rent. And
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anyone making that kind of decision. But, like I think that now having, knowing that rent is paid for a little bit, and, I don't have to jump immediately as soon as someone asks me to do a project. I'm like, okay, well, let me be choosy, in certain respects. Like, if there's something politically being said that I'm not 100% sure I'm comfortable with, I feel okay saying, I don't think I want to do that. And that's nice. It's a privileged position though to be in, and I realize that. And so, like, my hat's off to the people that make those decisions right off the bat, because that was not me for the longest time.
Yeah. I don't think it's anybody. It's sort of depressing that the freedom to kind of follow your own ethical mind is something that comes with a certain amount of, money in the bank. But I think it's unavoidable and true for most people.
Yeah. And I mean, it sucks. It's hard, because it's, like I really do wish that, there's definitely some things that I've done where I'm like, I don't know if that was the right kind of project, and it's like, and none of it's like really big stuff, but it's like, there's definitely been moments where I'm like, I don't know if that's the kind of thing I should have been doing, but I did it just because I needed the experience. I needed, or a paycheck, or I just wanted to perform and just see what I could do. And now I'm like, there's only so many years on this earth that we all get. And I want to make sure that I'm doing stuff that, when it's all sort of wrapped up, I'm like, I felt good about that decision. I felt good in doing that. And that's it. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to have choices about whether or not to do like the police procedural circuit and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
William Jackson Harper, thank you so much for talking to me. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
William Jackson Harper. His newest movie, We Broke Up, is playing now in select theaters and on demand. Keep an eye out next month for his role in Barry Jenkins' TV series, The Underground Railroad. That will be on Prime Video. Harper was interviewed by our friend and correspondent, Linda Holmes. Linda is one of the hosts of the great NPR show Pop Culture Happy Hour, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. She's also the author of several books, including the wonderful novel Evie Drake Starts Over. That's the end of another episode of Bullseye. Bullseye is created out of the homes of me and the staff of Maximum Fun in and around greater Los Angeles, California. Although, big news, friends, this little bit of narration is the first Bullseye that I have recorded in our actual recording studio in whatever it's been. A year and a half. My stomach is full of cabeza tacos. Con aguacate, no cebollas. I can't eat onions because it gives me a headache. The show is produced by Speaking Into Microphones. Our producer is Kevin Ferguson. Jesus Ambrosio and Jordan Cowling are our associate producers. We get help from Casey O'Brien. Production fellows at Maximum Fun are Richard Roby and Valerie Moffett. Our interstitial music is by Dan Wally, also known as DJ W. Our theme song is by The Go Team. Thanks to them and their label Memphis Industries for sharing it with us. You can also keep up with the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We post all of our interviews there. And I think that's about it. Just remember, all great radio hosts have a signature sign-off.
Bullseye with Jesse Thorn is a production of MaximumFun.org and is distributed by NPR.